Good morning and welcome to the July 9th, 2024 Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners agenda and board meeting. Our first item on our agenda is those that are able, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 on the agenda is the agenda review. Mr. Meyer, please.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as it was sent out on Thursday afternoon. Any discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The agenda is approved as distributed. Item number 3, County Ditch 60. We've got a hearing to set. Mr. Henniger, join us, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Ryan.
Just have a quick memo for setting the hearing date for County Ditch 60. County Ditch 60 watershed is approximately 570 benefited acres and is primarily located in Sterling Township. As part of the ongoing redetermination of benefits for County Ditch 60, it was discovered at an informational landowner meeting held on May 14th, 2024, that private tile had been installed, rerouting waters from both private lands, rerouting waters from both private lands, but also a portion of County Ditch 60 Branch 2 public drainage system. On May 28th, 2024, at the public hearing for the County Ditch 60 redetermination of benefits, it was suggested from the appointed viewers that, that Mr. Greg Olson be given until July 1st, 2024 to have time to complete the petition process for partial abandonment. Based off public testimony and appointed viewers' recommendations, the Drainage Authority decided that the final hearing for County Ditch 60 redetermination benefits be continued to a time date certain, being July 30th, 2024 at 9 a.m. The petition for partial abandonment shall be held and conducted ahead of the final hearing for County Ditch 60 redetermination of benefits. We request that the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority set a date of July 30th, 2024 at 9 a.m. for the hearing on the proposed petition for partial abandonment for portions of County Ditch 60 public drainage system. Sorry, deal with it. Crud.
All right, thank you. We've seen the action requested. What are your wishes?
I'll move approval.
A motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. Discussion, are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The hearing for partial abandonment will be on July 30th, 2024 at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Item number 4, tab number 2 on the agenda is Public Works. Ryan, please.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Ryan. Morning, Ryan.
Our first action item today is consideration of the 2023 Public Works Department Annual Report. It was included in the board's packet. I'll go through it relatively briefly. It's obviously the content changes, but the content stays the same. The numbers change and the projects obviously. Page 1, title of the report. I know this won't track to your PDF page numbers. It provides a breakdown of our mileage and the maintenance costs associated with said mileage. So we had 400, as you're aware, we have 420 miles of county stated highway rural, 20.64 miles of county stated highway municipal, 302 miles of county roads, and then a breakdown of our construction costs. I'll jump a couple more pages in, labeled 2B. There's a summary of the major road and bridge work items. That provides just a narrative on some of the contents of the report with respect to our road construction and maintenance activities. That's followed by a 11 by 17 map showing the location of those construction projects. I'll jump a couple more pages. Bob, you're probably struggling to keep up.
Can't keep up.
This is kind of fun for me sometimes.
Sorry.
Tell me if you want me to slow down, though.
All right, which page are you on?
Page 5, label of the report.
All right, let me find
It'll be
it.
about 4 or 5 pages after that. We have a breakdown of the mileage of the townships for the town road allotment that we received as a small portion of the motor vehicle, the highway user tax distribution fund. So you can see the amount that the townships receive varies from approximately 27,000 to about 12,000, depending on the mileage that they certify within Blue Earth County, and then they effectively split that up. I'm gonna jump a lot of pages to page, what's labeled page 11. I'm gonna try to have her label these better in the future. Snow and ice control, total summary of expenditures, we spent $982,000 on snow and ice control, $13.7 million on construction, $1.48 million on engineering, $1.39 million on right-of-way, and then building and capital, approximately $370,000. I'm gonna jump almost all the way to the back of the report that I think is usually the most telling and commissioners find the most interesting is our fund sources, which we have the pie chart with the breakdowns showing that our percentages of work or of our funding, that the local funds, including our local levy and then obviously our local option sales tax, make up 40% of our fund sources. State aid maintenance, regular and municipal, 16%. 23% from other grants and other sources. That's our state aid construction regular. And then our township bridge bond and LRIP made up about 9% of our total budget. Expenses breakdown is the following page. 24% is maintenance and equipment. 74% is construction, and administration is just 2% of our global budget.
So we're on page 137, right?
25 of the report, yeah.
100.
Yep, there we go.
Yes, 137.
With that, I'd answer any questions the board may have. I know, in the past, we've belabored this quite a while, and I've tried not to do that here today. So with that, I would request approval of the annual report.
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion on the annual report.
I don't have any questions or comments.
All right, are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The Highway Department Public Works annual report is approved.
All right, the next item for consideration is the 2023 Parks Department annual report. On the second page of the report, there's a map of all the park locations, followed by another narrative discussing all of the projects and happenings within the Parks Department. I'm gonna go about 3 or 4 more pages to the 2023 Parks statistics. Total revenues of $255,565.91 collected from all parks. Includes almost 7,600 total camping nights. Of those, 2,742 online reservations were made. $2,677 total boat rental, and about $7,600 of wood sales. 157 shelter reservations made. In comparison to 2022, was a peak year for camping. I believe it was up there 2022 and 2021. Obviously, with the pandemic, folks were getting outside more, and had more free time. Had 8,092 nights. So we're down from those years, which I guess is to be expected. Kind of jump to the back of this report as well. There's a breakdown on what's labeled as page 8. There's a couple of pie charts noting the cash revenues. A large portion of it is 55% coming from local revenues, 31% from operations, and then some kind of other miscellaneous revenues supporting the Parks Department. And our expenditures, 35% goes towards maintenance, 45% towards operations, 15% towards construction, and then about 5% towards equipment. couple of more pages back, there's a bar chart showing different revenues from camping, from boat rentals, wood sales, etc. Couple more pages back from that, you'll find the summary of the caretakers' incomes for each of our respective parks, obviously with those contract positions that we have, and then the subsequent page is this tabulation of all of the camping nights by park. With that, I would request approval of the 2023 Parks Department Annual Report.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, discussion. I do, and I'm on page 158 printed, or I'm not sure what page it is on here. It's the by weeks at the different parks.
Yep.
I see this year where we've kind of got them on every week, where in the past years, we've kind of, some only did it more bi-weekly or monthly, you know, where we had a lot of weeks, there was no numbers in there. But now we're doing it, we're keeping track
Yeah,
a little closer by week.
the new software is easier to do that with because it's obviously computerized and it's easier to work with than the previous software.
Appreciate that expanded data.
Yep.
Other discussions on the Parks Annual Report? We've got a motion and second to approve it. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The Parks Annual Report is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is consideration of bids for state aid projects 007602, 009, and 007602, 010, which is for the replacement of 2 box culverts on County State Aid Highway 2. We received 4 bids. We had an engineer's estimate of $288,381. The low bid was Selly Excavating, which is relatively local. I believe they're out of the center area. $309,213.50, so 7.22% over our engineer's estimate. Copy of the project bid abstract has been provided. This is sometimes the struggle we get into when we bid these things in midsummer like this, but we had obviously a major influx with the LRIP money we received from the state, and we've got a dire need to get a lot of these box culverts completed, so contractors' schedules start filling up, and sometimes you end up paying a little bit more if you don't get them out right away in the spring. But I think given where we're at in our construction budget, I have no concerns. I would recommend award, and it's a relatively small delta if you look at the total dollar amount. I recommend award.
I'll move approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second, discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The bid is awarded to Sully Excavating Incorporated.
The next action item is consideration of bids for state aid project 007598036, replacement of a box culvert on County Road 157. Engineer's estimate was pass out the abstracts. The engineer's estimate was $124,933. The low, we received 2 bids. The low bid was R&E Enterprises of Mankato at $151,352. Again, not a huge delta total dollar wise, but because we had already purchased that box culvert, the total percentage over the estimate, looks like a large percentage. With that being said, though, I would recommend award to R&E Enterprises of Mankato.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion. Any discussion?
No.
Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. The bid is awarded to R&E Enterprises of Mankato.
All right, thank you. We'll go into some project and updates, departmental updates. County State Aid Highway 13 from US 169 to CASA 1, which we started in 2023. The bridge over the Blue Earth River is open to local and construction traffic. meaning residents that live on the project. Obviously, the road has not been open to, anybody else yet. Mathewitz continues drainage work on culverts and tile crossings. The grading work has obviously been very slow over the past month with the significant amount of rain we've had. They've struggled to make significant progress there. CASA 11 from the West County line to CASA 6. R&E continues drainage work on culverts and tile crossings. They've seen a little more progress on the grading work because that was primarily a full depth reclamation and shoulder widening project. So they've had the road bed where they could haul material on. So that's progressing. CASA 82 from south of Hoffman to Fair Street in Mankato. Dirt Merchant Incorporated removals and subcuts are completed. They're working on the storm sewer along the entire project, and then they'll also be working later this week on the sanitary sewer and water main crossing of the city utilities at Hoffman Road. So you'll see them digging across the intersection, getting the city utilities replaced through there. Concrete paving work is scheduled to begin the end of the month, so that's good news. 29 bridge replacement. We received the project memorandum approval and are waiting for MnDOT authorization to bid the project. We actually just got that since I've had these notes typed up. We plan to open bids mid-August and award in either late August or early September. The federal approval process takes obviously longer than the state funding does. It's likely that construction in 2024 could be to be determined. With it being a little bit later in the season, it'll depend on the contractor's availability and appetite. So I think we'll structure it that they could do the project in 2024 late into the year and return the surface to gravel over the course of the winter, or wait until 2025 to begin the project. County Road 146 bridge replacement. Everstrong Construction will close the bridge and begin work on this upcoming Monday the 15th on County Road 146. And they'll have Erickson Engineering. We're going to ask Erickson Engineering to assist the county staff with bridge construction inspection due to our sheer workload. We've got a lot going on and we just don't have enough bodies. Erickson designed the bridge, so that's why we asked them to assist us with it. They've got the most knowledge, obviously, of that project design, and they had availability for staff to come down and assist us. County Road 139 bridge replacement funding was recently approved, so we'll be getting $530,000 of local bridge replacement program funds, plus coupled with about almost $200,000 of local funds for almost $730,000 total project cost. Likely, we're still waiting for environmental permits and likely bid this fall for construction in 25. So that's on 139. CASA 5 from Riverfront Drive to Summit. The project design is moving forward. We'll be coordinating some access locations and consolidations with some of the businesses along there. One of the outcomes of the corridor study was that there were quite a few recommendations for access consolidation for better mobility and safety of that corridor. So we're going to be meeting with some of the more heavily impacted businesses to try to figure out their operations and hopefully come to a reasonable accord of where those accesses can best serve their needs. AET will be conducting soil borings next week on site, so there'll be some interim traffic control taking place while they're doing soil borings. CASA 15 and 28 in St. Clair. Bolton and Mink is the city's consultant engineer, and we hired them to do the project design for us and construction inspection most likely. They're going to be doing the survey work. And 10 from the West County line to CASA 20 in design. Final bridge plan comments have been received. That's when I've been wanting to get the bridge plans approved so that we can get funding for the bridge with what little bit of money is remaining in the local bridge replacement program. So hopefully we get those final comments addressed and get that plan approved in time. I've been talking with state aid, kind of trying to nudge and hope that we could keep it at the head of the line if at all possible. So they are aware that we're looking, because obviously that bridge funding is tied to a road reconstruction project next year, and if we don't get the bridge, it makes it more challenging to complete the road. The road plans are progressing to 90%. We anticipate beginning right-of-way acquisition meeting soon. So that's moving right along. The CASA 40 slope repair project southwest of Amboy has been kind of shelved for the time being. The project design is along pretty well. We need to start working on the project memorandum again. We received about $320,000 of federal aid for that project, and so we need to complete a project memorandum by even December. So it's in a decent position where we're comfortable moving some other things forward first. 10 from Vernon Center to 1 mile east, including the bridge replacement. The contract with Widseth Engineering has been executed, and we're gonna have a project kickoff meeting tomorrow, so they'll begin designing that piece as well. The CASA 14 box culvert bridge replacement project funding was recently approved, $140,000 of local bridge replacement program, coupled with about $260,000 of local funds for almost $400,000 total project cost. And we anticipate bidding that project this fall for 2025 construction. We also have box culverts on 26 and 156. 26, we're still wrapping up plans, and we would like to get that bid in 2025, depending on funding. On County Road 156, the funding was recently approved, so we're going to be getting, that's actually, I believe that one's a bridge, I'm sorry, not a box culvert. $593,000 of local bridge replacement program funds, coupled with $136,000 of local funding for, again, almost a $730,000 bridge replacement project. We anticipate bidding this project this fall, and again for 2025 construction. So the bridge funding is broken loose. We're usually very aggressive about keeping bridges in the queue and in design, so that we've got bridge plans done, sitting on the shelf, ready to go, exactly for these types of situations where there's finally state bridge bonding dollars available, and we're able to heavily capitalize on it. So we've had a huge influx of state bridge bond dollars this year, which has been great. So we're getting a lot of bridge projects completed in box culverts that were sorely needed. So
Sure.
I can't say it'll fully get us caught up, but it'll put us in much more advantageous position. Maintenance activities updates. The excavator, the county's excavator was pulled into the Blue Earth River on May 10th while clearing log debris from the CASA 34 bridge, as the county board is aware. Fortunately, our operator was able to escape without injury. That's really the most important part about this entire story. MCIT considered the excavator a total loss due to the damages to it. They valued it at approximately $70,300 minus $5,000 deductible. So we'll be getting a little bit over $65,000, which was actually greater than the trade-in value we were going to be seeing from RDO. We did have an excavator budgeted for 2024 for $260,000. I anticipate bringing a purchase order for a 2024 John Deere 210E off of the state bid contract for the July 30th board meeting for the board consideration.
Are they available? How far out is it?
We should be able to get it pretty quickly.
Really? Good.
Yeah. That's why we decided to go off of the state bid process.
No, it makes sense.
Flooding roads, the staff have been extremely busy over the last 3 weeks, closing, monitoring, and repairing flooded roads throughout the county. And at one point we had over 30 roads closed and over 100 damaged areas with the flooding that had happened. Varying levels of severity. We're still assessing damages to our roads and to our parks, and we'll be documenting the damages and the repairs and everything else associated with that, with working with the FEMA and the FHWA for reimbursement wherever possible. Routine maintenance activities are still going on, albeit they've slowed down a little bit over the last 3 weeks with our staff being so dedicated to dealing with all the flooding issues across the county. And the crews are beginning to bituminous patching, and then they'll be followed up by gravel shouldering the following towards closer to the end of the month, I would say. They're out spraying thistles and wild parsnip now. I know that's always a hot topic this time of year. We did transition from like a 1 ton or a 550 with a tank on it to a full tandem with a tank on it, so we can get more route coverage. And also the unit now has GPS tracking on it, so we can track which roads have been sprayed. So that's been handy for us already a couple of times. Dura patching potholes and transverse cracks is still underway. With that being said, provide the board with an update on the Rapidan Dam.
So before we go there, Ryan, I want to take a point of privilege as the chair, and unfortunately, we don't have the sheriff or the emergency management on today's agenda. They didn't have anything that needed to be covered. I would have rather they'd been in the room as well, but as chair, on behalf of the board here and all the citizens of Blue Earth County, we just want to thank our staff. We're going to start with Bob Meyer, as administrator, of all the hard work and everything else between administration leadership, public works, sheriff's department, emergency management. We had a lot of stuff going on, and I want to thank Bob and Jesse for all the hours they took out at the site and do that. I want to thank Josh on behalf of the board for keeping the rest of the county running and making sure. I mean, just because you have one thing going on in one part of the county doesn't mean there's not other things going on. We've already talked about over 30 roads and things like that. But certainly thank you to Josh and Stephanie for keeping things going on here with administration in the courthouse. But to you specifically, Ryan, and all the public works staff, certainly want to thank you and all their work, and not just at the dam, but there's a lot of other things going on at the same time. It's a big county with a lot of roads, a lot of bridges and things like that. We appreciate that, and wish that the sheriff was here as well as the emergency manager. Those were the four that were doing that. I think we'll hear a little bit as we look at the timeline of what has happened from June 23rd to July 8th, our past timeline, as we talk about timelines. And that, but also the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, FERC, Minnesota Department of Transportation were very helpful in not only on-site, but helping with other bridges and things like that, as well as DNR, dam safety specialists. So on behalf of the commissioners, we want to thank all county staff, and that things don't happen by themselves or just with one person, but want to thank those that are in the room and those aren't for all they did to make this happen, so thank you.
On behalf of Public Works, we do appreciate the support. The county board has been very supportive, and thank you for that, because it's been a very trying time, and it's obviously we've got a long road ahead of us, but it makes it much more bearable to know that we're all on the same team and rowing in the same direction. So thank you for that, and everybody else within the county, from emergency management, sheriffs, and administration, have been great to work with. So, and I'm very proud of our team and our people for what the work that they've done. So thank you.
My only hiccup is I can't find anybody that'll make me a button that says, who has the first damn question?
That's kind of.
All right, let's go to number 7.
I know people that can make that, Kevin.
That knows people.
I know people that make those.
Yeah.
All right. So I know the board has received a copy of the most recent timeline. I think I was going to, knowing that you've seen the previous week, I was going to really kind of focus on the last week, if that's all right, and be happy to answer any questions along the way. Summary of the discussions. This is going to be a summary of discussions with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and other agencies. In the past week, we've been in constant contact with numerous agencies discussing the current situation and trying to evaluate options that are available to the county given the circumstances. The following are highlights of those conversations, so I'm going to try to keep these at a fairly high level. You know, I've got notes, and I try to boil down a half-hour or 45-minute conversation into 10 different bullet points maybe in my notepad, and then I got to try to make sense of them again a week later. So with that being said, we will have Bolton and Mink actually out there today surveying the alignment of the dam. They've done this work for us historically. They have some markers on the dam. So they're working with our staff with some supervision for safety purposes, obviously. So they'll be getting some measurements, so we'll see if the dam has rotated or slidden at all. Hopefully they're able to get adequate information to make that determination. Going out on the deck for certified staff only was approved by the FERC. They went out onto the deck and evaluated the dam stability, looking for major structural cracks or things of that nature, and based on their observations, they think it's safe to send, you know, staff out there only as needed, obviously. So we're going to keep that to a fair minimum amount of putting people out there. On July 1st, I spoke with representatives of the FERC from their Division of Hydropower Administration and Compliance. The county, obviously in April of 2023, had requested to surrender its FERC licensure exemption. And that has been put on hold due to the incident. The FERC requested a letter or resolution from the county providing clarification if it still wants to proceed with the surrender as it was submitted, which effectively, if you recall, our surrender application at the time, because we hadn't had this issue, was to surrender it as is and leave the dam standing until the board made a decision. So that could still be a possible outcome, or the board could request to surrender the license with dam removal as the objective. Due to the sediment discharge, it's probably likely that it's going to require a NEPA document, which would be either an EAW or an EIS. And from our notice to them, they would have 1 year to complete that document. So unfortunately, this timeline's been drawn out. She can't say with certainty that a NEPA document will be required, but being that it's a federal agency and the magnitude of the failure that happened at the dam, I would be surprised if they didn't require it. On July 1st, I also spoke with representatives from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I provided a status update regarding my FERC DHAC conversation. The Corps also requires a NEPA document. It's unlikely, after quite a bit of discussion, it's unlikely that their NEPA document and the FERC NEPA document could be one and the same. I tried to explore that option because I thought maybe we could find some efficiency there. Just from a timeline standpoint, but it sounds like the FERC would need to do theirs soon, and the Corps typically waits till the end of a study to do this because they want to kind of come up with a desired outcome that the NEPA document then evaluates. They said that they also, where am I at here? Different time frame. The gentleman I spoke with, Carl Jansen with the Corps, will investigate opportunities that they have with the Army Corps and he's going to be coming actually to the county board for discussion. I don't know if it'll be during the regular board meeting or during a work session after the fact to further discuss the county's options and alternative paths available through the Army Corps of Engineers. So they'll actually be here in person to meet the county board. I thought that was very important to get them here, and they're more than happy to do it. So, excuse me. On July 2nd, we hosted Governor Walz, as well as representatives from Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith's offices, as well, including many of our state representatives at the dam. I thought that was a good meeting. We appreciate all of their attention and their time. On July 2nd, I spoke with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Director of Ecological Water Resource Division. Her division oversees the Dam Safety Office for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. She expressed support for the county and asked where we are with the FERC license surrender. I updated her. They want to respect jurisdictional authorities, but they also understand the county's position in wanting to get rid of the FERC license and get it to the DNR so that we can maybe move things along with whatever decision the board makes. And she indicated they may be willing to initiate some conversations with the FERC. Now we'll see if that comes to fruition or not, but it's on my radar. I appreciate their reaching out and their offering of support, and we'll see where it can go from there. On July 3rd, I spoke with the MnDOT Assistant Project Development Engineer working on statewide Federal Highway Administration emergency relief events. He reviewed my documents requesting potential funding for the CASA 9 bridge, so I submitted documentation, although a lot of uncertainty with respect to the CASA 9 bridge. Our lower functional class roads, and if they're not a collector status and above from a functional classification, they're eligible for FEMA reimbursement. If they're collector, major collector and above, they're eligible for Federal Highway Administration emergency relief and disaster account funding. So it's kind of two separate programs we have to work within. The CASA 9 bridge is obviously is a collector status, so it qualifies for Federal Highway Administration. So I submitted some documentation to get us on their list for potential funding. Obviously, it's uncertain. We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns with the bridge. Obviously, one, the stability. We're still unable to measure the scour depth at the piers. We've taken some very crude measurements with a 30-foot long steel pipe that we dropped like a spear from the top of the bridge deck. And really all we're able to do then is just kind of provide a measure of when it hits the ground below the water before it tips over, how deep is the water, and then try to tie that to comparison to what we see exposed on the piling and the footings and everything else. So it's very crude. Obviously, as we discussed on Monday the 1st, when Collins Engineers was out there trying to take the underwater survey. It wasn't, if the water's too turbid, there's still too much flow. I think there's still probably, we're guesstimating probably about 9,000 to 10,000 cubic feet per second still flowing, so it's still pretty significant volume. We discussed the challenge of determining whether to replace the bridge or repair it, given the situation with the dam, and I think that's still up in the air. Once we can get better data and determine the scour, we can evaluate whether or not there's viable options to try to protect the piling and the piers of the bridge. But ultimately, if we can't provide stability for the bridge with the continued erosion happening and head cut of the channel, you know, it doesn't make sense to pour $1 million or more into trying to protect a 40-year-old bridge. And you have to maybe move on to a new bridge. So we're still working through that process. They understand it's going to take the county time. He still understands there is a possibility of dam and or bridge failure. It's not off the table if we have another flood event, even if we continue to see erosion happening. It appears like it's kind of slowed down the rate of erosion around the piling, but again, we're taking very crude measurements with what we can. We bought a 40-pound kettlebell and dropped it from a rope, and the water just sucks it away so fast, it's not even funny. So where was I? Reporting. No real additional reporting needed at this time. On July 3rd, I spoke with Bar Engineering. I've been speaking with them almost every day, if not every other day, discussing the current status of the dam and the bridge, as well as agency conversations since the last time we had provided an update. We've got several things we have to consider in parallel, and it's going to be very challenging. One is the current situation, obviously ensuring public safety, so monitoring the bridge, keeping it closed, monitoring the dam, downstream bridges, etc. Two is to come up with an interim plan for operations and evaluation of stabilizing efforts at the dam, at the west bank, and at the bridge, and how much resources do you put in versus kind of measuring the interim, midterm, and then the long-term plan, obviously, as we explore options with respect to what to do with the channel now, what to do with the dam now, and whether the bridge is removed or repaired. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a chicken and egg conundrum of which one comes first. I'm hoping the Corps of Engineers visit on the 30th will provide more light for the county board on this. Unfortunately, at this point, I just don't have answers for you or recommendations in regard to that. We also discussed FEMA's expectations. I would like to get them going on developing cost estimates, but I'm concerned that until we are able to meet with FEMA and fully understand their expectations, that we may be wasting quite a bit of engineering resources on guessing what FEMA is going to say. So July 8th, I provided an update to the FERC on our status. They'll be conducting a forensic evaluation, which includes an after-action report. So they'll be reviewing everything that occurred and providing a formal report on it. No specific timeline was provided on when that'll happen. On July 5th, a smaller dam in Manawa, Wisconsin breached in a very similar manner to what happened to the Rapidan Dam, which prompted evacuations for people living down the river. So, yeah, Manawa, Wisconsin. If you're interested, it's in the news now, and so it's unfortunate. It did the same thing. Water went over and started cutting around the side of the dam.
Wow.
So, and it was a smaller dam, I think maybe 15 to 20 feet tall, but yeah, very similar situation. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Department was able to bring Mike Crush and myself to the downstream side of the dam via their boat. Additional photos were taken. I haven't had a chance to upload all of those and get them to the FERC and other regulatory agencies. We were able to walk around the actual sandbar down there and looking at it from a public safety standpoint when the river flows go down, making sure that the dam is secured. There is a downstream, a door that came out by the spillway onto a kind of a deck or a patio. I think the board may have been out on that area. There's probably 5 feet of sediment on top of that door. So that door, there's about 3 feet at the top of the door open. The powerhouse probably has 5 feet of sediment filled inside of it right now. We poked our heads in and got some photographs, but we didn't go in too far because the sediment that was in there was kind of liquid. So if you step too far off, you're going to be up to your waist and muck, so as
Yeah.
fun as that sounded. Mike and I were able to look at the interior, the structure of the dam, and take some photos again for evaluation with the FERC. There's a tremendous amount of large debris, along the riverbanks. And when we went from the Minnesota River at Judson down to Minnesota and then up the Blue Earth to the dam, that large conglomerate of trees that we saw that plugged at gates 4 and 5, there were probably another half dozen or more of those size of masses of these just large groups of trees plugged together along the river. The riverbanks are lined with 50 to 125 foot tall enormous trees along the riverbanks. So the amount of debris is absolutely mind-boggling downstream of the dam, and I can only imagine that upstream of the dam looks or looked very much the same. So it's one of those things that to combat that is just really very, very challenging, I guess. We're still waiting for flows to subside to better evaluate the dam and the bridge scour damages. We still think there's a possibility that the dam could have a scour hole underneath it, but until flows are way down, we won't be able to tell. The sheriff, we got the boats up to that, and that was probably pretty dicey to get to the sandbar on the downstream side of the dam that's accumulated. I don't think there was any way that we could have safely gone any farther up to try to get to the bridge piers. That flow is still ripping through there pretty rapidly, and there's still about a 10 to 15 foot elevation difference from the corner of the dam down to the base of the spillway. We're going to be required to, as we've talked about, evaluate several challenging issues in parallel. The core discussion coming up on the 30th about our pass forward, a FEMA meeting that's yet to be determined when they're going to be meeting with us and what their outlook is going to be on this, as far as how they're going to be willing to proceed with any funding that we would be eligible for. We still need to provide that letter to the FERC, Division of Hydropower and Compliance, on what our desired path is. I obviously don't anticipate that we'll do that until we've had a chance to talk to the Corps and maybe others, and then developing in consideration of our interim and long-term alternatives for those discussions with BAR. Obviously continue to monitor bridge stability and evaluating whether or not it's feasible to repair the dam. So with that, I'd answer any questions the board may have.
Mr.
Clarifying
Chair,
questions.
Mr. Chair, obviously a lot of talk around the bridge and the safety of that bridge. And I know we've talked in the past of how much that would cost to replace, but do you have a number in mind to replace that? I know we've had early discussions about it, as we talked about.
I think the BAR engineering report in 2021, and don't quote me to the exact number, I think it was in the neighborhood of $8 million.
Yeah.
So I would say, obviously, with the inflation we've seen over the last couple of years, that number goes up, so I'm spitballing in that 8 to 10.
And would that, and again, we're getting kind of into the weeds on the grand scheme of things here, but would that bridge look a lot like what it is now? Or would we change it in any major way at this point?
Well, obviously, the pier design would be dramatically different.
Right, but as far as the
And I
road
think
elevation,
That's a good question. We'd have to
aesthetics.
look at that. I actually found out that when that bridge was designed or built in the early 80s, when it was designed, they actually had an alternative that went down to the base of the dam and actually may have worked better at the time for the road. So kind of in hindsight, being 2020, had they put the bridge down there, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion, but I'm not going to cast stones for decisions that were made. Yeah, what the bridge, I would anticipate longer spans, so we'd probably be going with either a steel, if we could get the steel beams to span longer with bigger steel beams or bigger concrete beams.
Sure.
And a more robust bridge that, with obviously a much different foundation design.
okay,
But given the fact now you've got the road and everything else, what we do with perhaps the dam and other things could, give us more room to navigate within there. But given the fact you've already got a road alignment there, I would kind of anticipate we follow
Sure.
the same alignment. So just to minimize the impact of the residences out there and such.
and as challenging as that was, the discussions we had before, and people might think that this is gonna make our decision easier. I would argue this is gonna make it much more complicated, and by your report, I stand by that thought that I had. Sounds like we got a lot more challenges with, EAWs, different groups coming into this, and federal government's not making, not letting us know when we can make decisions. I think it's just gonna get more complicated, but.
Yeah, I wish I could say with certainty on all of this, but it's, I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been a federal agency that's stepped in and kind of given us
Some direction.
stronger direction.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I'm fine with them letting us make the decision, but I wish they'd let us make the decision. You got the FERC permit saying, well, we're not gonna give up your permit till you tell us what you're gonna do, but we don't need the FERC permit anymore, so why are we even talking about that? I mean, it doesn't work very well in my brain, but.
I agree with that. The FERC has expressed to me why they maybe are more hesitant to give up these licenses in these situations because of the dam failure that happened in Michigan in 2020.
Mhm.
And they had a situation where, as I understand it, the licensee was non-compliant in several areas and couldn't afford to take care of the dam, decided to surrender the license, went to the state, subsequently had a failure, and it was a black mark for everybody associated with the state and the feds. And so they're concerned, I think, somewhat about the optics of how it looks to be handing these problems down to the states and kind of pushing off their burden and their problem to somebody else, but in the same breath, it slowed everything down on our ability to make any decisions because we've been trying to get rid of that license.
Yeah, my point exactly.
Prior to the flood, were any of the gates blocked by the county?
Blocked by the county?
Correct.
Well-
I've heard reports,
Oh,
people
I
have
think I know
said
what you're
that
talking about.
they've heard that the county had actually blocked the gates prior.
So in,
And we have to be clear whether we're talking about Gainer gates or needle gates.
correct.
Of the
So-
main gates.
Prior to the repair project in 2016, there were 7 gates, 5 steel tainer gates and 2 timber needle gates. And the FERC did, in conjunction with the county and Eagle Creek, did a potential failure mode analysis study in like 20, I think it started in 14 or 15. But one of the probable failure modes of the dam was that if the county ever were to pull those those easternmost 2 timber needle gates, because of the sandstone bedrock and the relatively non-robust retaining wall on the right or east side of the dam, if you were to pull those, what happened on the west side of the dam would happen on the east side of the dam. It would scour away. We already saw signs of scour damage behind the right retaining wall just from this flood without having flow go over that. So what the approved design was, design approved by the FERC for this project and recommended, was to reconfigure the Tainer gate opening so it would pass the IDF flood through the 5 gates and then pull the 2 timber needle gates and fill those with reinforced concrete. That was approved by the FERC.
And when was that?
That was in 2016 we did that.
2016.
Yep.
Okay. And, you hear a lot of people talking and they want to blame the county for what's happening. My understanding before Sunday, the 23rd, that there was a small amount of debris at the dam, is that correct?
Yeah, I think there were like 2 trees that were kind of hung up in the gates, and again, that's when Sunday afternoon when we called the contractor and asked him to try to come out and just clear those couple, and he was unavailable and unwilling to go out onto the deck with the.
So the guy that to clear that didn't have his equipment there.
Correct, it was about 5 hours away.
Correct.
And he said because the flows were
And it was
24,000
that,
already at that
and
point.
it was that Sunday night that the large amount of trees came off from the bridge and then hit the dam at that time.
Yep, and that was the kind of the conglomerate of trees that blocked gates 4 and 5. All of the other trees that blocked gates 1 through 3 came down the river sometime between 9:30 p.m. when our staff was out there checking on it, and 1:30 a.m. when the dam overtopped. So that much of it came down the river in a kind of a giant flush over about a 5-hour period.
All right. Thank you very much.
Anything else? I would just add, I don't think that Blue Earth County is the only place in the U.S. that has aging infrastructure. This is an issue that's affecting a lot of rural America. In fact, tomorrow afternoon, the Senate Ag Committee is having a hearing on the state of rural infrastructure, emergency response, recovery, and resilience. NACO has been asked to testify. I, as Vice Chair of the Ag and Rural Affairs Policy Committee, will be testifying on behalf of NACO tomorrow afternoon. I think it might have a little bit to do with the fact that we do have some recent infrastructure concerns in our county, but this is something that Senate Ag Committee will be doing. It's a subcommittee. Both of our Minnesota U.S. senators sit on that subcommittee, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that, but the need for more federal help, especially the smaller rural counties, as to how to get through this process, whether it's preparation, response, recovery, all the resilience, and the appropriate funding through rural development. Anything else for Ryan?
Appreciate it, yeah.
Well, we forgot to tell you, thank you to you and the entire Public Works team, as well as Sheriff, Emergency Services, Administration. Everybody went above and beyond, that's for sure.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Have a good day.
Item number 5 on our agenda, tab 3, is the county attorney update. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I know you have a pretty heavy agenda for the rest of the day, so the report speaks for itself, but if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Pat.
And we appreciate the report included in the packet. Item number 6, administration, Mr. Meyer.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes from June 24th. That was that emergency meeting for the state of emergency declaration.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried, those minutes are approved.
Next are the county board minutes for June 25th, the regular board meeting that day.
I would move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The minutes of June 25th are approved.
Tab 6 in your packet is the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second on the bills, discussion. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried, the bills are approved.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, tab 7 is the Human Resources Department agenda. We have probably the shortest list of action that we've had in a couple of years probably, but just 3 items to share with the board today. We had a resignation of a lieutenant in the Sheriff's Department, and so we've initiated recruitment to fill that position. We also had a resignation of a Property and Environmental Resource Specialist 1, and so we will follow up at a later date there. But both of these are long-term employees finishing their careers, and so we wish them well into the future. If there are no questions on that, I move to tab 8, which is a memo regarding recycling services agreement. You've had a chance to review the memo, but basically it indicates that this is a renewal of an agreement with Demcon Materials Recovery for the processing of recyclable materials. We have a contract where we pay them to take recyclables from Blue Earth County. There is a rebate component to that, so it is possible that the county would get more money coming back than we pay in, depending on those recyclable markets. But requesting approval today of an agreement with Demcom Materials Recovery, and then authorization for myself and the Property and Environmental Resource Department Director to execute that contract.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried, it is approved.
Tab 9 in your packet then is a memo regarding some revisions to the April 9th county board minutes. We inadvertently missed one of the action items that was approved that day, and so bringing it back here today for formal approval from the board.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried, the revision is approved.
Tab 10 in your packet is a memo regarding some agreements with the city of Lake Crystal and the city of Mapleton for agreements around provision of library services. The last revision of these agreements was back in, I believe, 2000, so we're just reviewing some of that material and updating it to better reflect the current relationship that we have with those two cities and the branch libraries in those communities.
I'll move it.
Second it.
A motion and a second, discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried.
Tab 11 then is the financial status report for June 30th, so we're halfway through our fiscal year. You'll see that total revenues sit at $58.6 million against expenses of $57.7 million. So we're slightly ahead in that regard. Just draw your attention to a couple of lines. We do have our first half taxes fully collected. We're down just a little bit from last year, which is an interesting observation, I think, at this point. Still at 52% of our budget, so the collections have been strong against the budget, but it's interesting that we had stronger first half collections in '23. Our contracts and fees expense line sits at just under 13 million. That's up quite a bit from prior year. Obviously, we had County Road 13 project that was happening over the winter, so we had a little more construction work that was done. Still on track though for based on our budget. Nothing really to be concerned about there. Overall, you'll see that our total revenues sit at about 46% of our budget, and our expenses sit at 45%. So again, both a little bit under that 50% target at this point. I'll maybe move on to the enterprise fund and just point out that for the landfill, we have $2.4 million of revenue against $2.4 million of expenses. So pretty darn close to a break even at this point, even though we have bought some expensive equipment this year. So the revenues at the Ponderosa continue to be strong. The second page then shows our available funds. Towards the top, you'll see our total available funds at 84 million. Our target at 6-month operating budget is 62.5 million, so we're running a little bit above our target in that regard. And then further down the page, you'll see the total county funds sit at 142.8 million. So unless there's any questions from the board, I'd just maybe end my report at that point, but I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have about the financial status.
Looks strong.
I have no questions, but I think we're lucky it is strong because we got a lot coming up.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Item number 7, Commissioners' reports on committees. Vance, would you go first?
I can. On the Thursday after our last board meeting, I had a NACO Credentials Committee. And let's see, then that Saturday, we met Representative Finstead at the Rapidan Dam. On Monday, the 1st, I had a, let's see, MRCI Executive Board meeting. I had a NACO call directly after that for the NACO Executive Board chairs and vice chairs. On Tuesday the 2nd, we, most of us met Governor Walz at the dam. And then that evening I had a Farm Advisory Committee meeting. Then yesterday I had a NACO Transportation Committee meeting on Zoom. That's the end of my report, sir.
Thank you. Kip?
Actually, after our last meeting, I had an extension meeting, and we had a good meeting, and had a good discussion about the MOU that we're working with them, and we'll be bringing that back to them in the next couple months. And then planning and zoning, we did not have any items for that, and I had several ditch issues going on throughout the last couple weeks with all the rain, and gravel road issues out in the rural area with washouts and maintenance of the gravel roads, and obviously several trips out to the dam dealing with different items out there at different points. That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mark, please.
Okay, it's, as been mentioned, with Representative Finstead at the dam, the senators, and then the governor. It was a full week for a lot of reasons. And then had the Partners for Affordable Housing on June 27th that we're looking at finding more sources of dollars, but anyway, just moving along, and that basically is my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Patty?
My report's really light. The same events at the dam as everybody else. I've spent lots of time out there with Representative Finstead, the governor, senator, staff, and all the reps that showed up. It was nice having all the support that we had there. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. My report will be very similar. A lot of texts, emails, calls from elected officials, reaching out, which we always appreciate, and a lot of texts, emails, and calls, as Commissioner Brunder talked about, in the rural area, ditches, roads, certainly the dam. I also participated in the June 27th Extension Committee, the June 29th Finstead Tour, the July 1st NACO Leadership Call, the July 2nd Governor Walz and others Dam Tour. In addition, would be on July 7th. Yesterday afternoon, the Minnesota River One Watershed One Plan Policy Committee met, and then this morning the JD 36 had a meeting, and that ends my report, and that ends our agenda. So at this point, I would ask a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. We're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. We are adjourned. It is 10:04. We will.